Hi everyone. Today we are going to learn the two different annotations from the Springboot framework. One is nothing but at the rate path variable and another one is nothing but at the rate request params. These two annotations will almost all do the same job, but what is the difference and why we are using these two different annotations? Let's learn today. So coming to at the rate path variable, we should use this path variable where we required some mandatory fields. For example, let's consider one banking application which gives account details to the customer over the UI. So here mandatory field is user ID. User ID is required to identify the customer and give his account details to him. So now if you come to this backend application which I have created, this is account service. Consider it as one bank application. That bank application have account service. You just imagine in that way. If you observe here, this is get account. Sorry, this is get account details is one endpoint, and in curly braces I mentioned user ID as well. So this user ID is part of this path itself. That's why we are using at the rate path variable annotation and binding the data coming to this user ID to this user ID, which is nothing but method parameter here. Okay. Now let's just have an overview of this method. I mean in the controller, this endpoint. If you observe here, I am passing the user ID which I got as a part of your path variable. As a part of path. This is the path, right? So passing to the get account details method in the service class. So I will get the get account details and I am returning that account details. Okay. And now let's go to Postman. See, here I already have get account details endpoint here. Okay, my application account service is running on 8083 port number. Now I am adding the user ID here. I am clicking on send button. See, I got the response from the database. I have created one database which is called as accounts table. From this accounts table, for this user ID, I got the data into the Postman now. Okay, if you observe pattern here, I'm not using curly braces like this. You should not use like that actually. You will get exceptions. Okay. Pattern is pattern contains curly braces, but actual endpoint should not contain the curly braces while you are passing the data to the respective endpoint. Okay. Now let's see the I'm going to the controller. So I will show you another endpoint. I have created another endpoint to explain what is the use of at the rate request param. See, here request param you need to use they where there are certain filter criterias. I will show you one screenshot. This is the screenshot. This is one of the real-time banking application where it will give the detailed statement. In the sense, there is a option. There is an option called as to select the start date and end date to fetch the statement between that date range only. Okay. So now at the rate request params need to be used where you have filter criterias. This is the endpoint get account statement. Here also I have used at the rate, here also I have used the user ID in the curly braces just to get the user ID from the path itself. Then I will pass the I will pass the params from the request itself. Let's go to the Postman. The main difference, one more thing, the main difference between at the rate path variable and at the rate request params is here in the at the rate request params annotation, you can mention required equal to false. When you mention required equal to false, this value for this from date will be by default null. Same for to date as well, as we mentioned required equal to false. If you mention required equal to true, it will not be null. Okay, and it's mandatory. It becomes mandatory. Default value also you can mention. Here I have mentioned default value as some date. Okay, this is one more difference between at the rate path variable and at the rate request param. Now let's go to the Postman and test how at the rate request param will work. If you observe here, after question mark, whatever the data you are passing that comes as that comes as a part of request params only. Question mark is the identification for request params. I am removing this. So as we are testing for request params, here you should give the params from date 2024 01 18. If you observe, my URL is also getting changed. Now you can observe my URL will get changed to date 2024 01 28. See, after I added the parameters key value pairs, those are nothing but key value pairs. Here, this from date to date and key values got added into my URL. Now, if I hit endpoint, I will, if I click on send button, see the statement between these date ranges I got as a response. So I got response because I have data in my database. This is the database. See here the date column is there. All the values for the user ID, particular user ID 12345. Here 12345 is the user ID. For this user ID statement between these two dates, I have received as a response. So this is the difference between two annotations at the rate request params at the rate path variable. Whenever you face the question in the interview, you should answer in this way. Request params need to be used where you have filter criterias. At the rate path variable need to be used where you require that particular field mandatorily. That mandatory field is required to identify the resource. Thank you.